Ladies and gentlemen, this RedGamerTech.com video, we're going to be discussing the recent rumours that Amazon are going to be releasing their own Android video game console by the end of the year, most likely by Black Friday. Now, I know what you're going to say, another Android console. Well, it's actually a little bit different, because Amazon have Amazon Game Studios, which according to their own website, right there, black and white on the text, says, and I quote, "We are focused on creating innovative, fun, and well-crafted games." They also said, "We know that many Amazon customers enjoy playing games, and we believe that we can deliver great, accessible gaming experiences that gamers can play at any time." Its director, David Lichtman, also used to work as Trian World, who of course are responsible for Defiant among other titles, and before that he used to be the general manager at Microsoft Studios. Meanwhile, there's also David Holmes. Now, David Holmes used to work on Epic's Gears of War 3, and also Xbox One games Quantum Break, and we've all seen the really bizarre looking trailers of that as well. And he's an executive producer at Amazon Game Studios. So these are people who know their stuff, and right now there's rumors circulating the internet that there are a lot more that Amazon Game Studios and Amazon themselves are snapping people up left, right and center. Now, there are a few things that we must consider. Firstly, they're entering a huge market, and one of the big competitors, of course, is Ouya. However, the problem with Ouya, they have very finite resources. To put this into perspective for you guys of just how big Amazon are turning into, and just the level of resources that they actually have in terms of the tech industry, I'm sure some of you might have heard of AWS, also known as Amazon Web Services. Now, in case you're not exactly 100% familiar with it, I'll do my best to quickly familiarize you guys with it. However, I have done a cloud computing video that you can check out. However, I need to do part 2 to it, to be fair. AWS is very much like Windows Azure, which is one of the things that's going to be powering the Xbox One. Now, Xbox One's live service, shall I say, has 300,000 servers, which are basically instances in the cloud. And AWS is very similar. They have a ridiculously robust cloud infrastructure with hundreds of thousands of servers, which are capable of very similar stuff actually to Windows Azure, and so it would be quite interesting to see if they decide to go the cloud-powered route as well. Furthermore, it's very, very important to know that Amazon themselves are one of the big distributors. I mean, you can actually download quite a lot of games, and just recently, just in the last couple of days alone, they've actually opened up their web services, the downloads, the digital downloads for the UK. Previously, if you wanted to buy a game that was on sale as a digital download, so, you download the code or whatever, similar to how you would do it on, say, Green Man Gaming or whatever else, you had to actually be a US resident, or you had to go through some very specific requirements like having a US credit card or whatever. I'm not going to go into the specifics, but you could do that, but it was a real rigmarole. And now they've started to open up, so they're definitely starting to jump into the gaming market, and their prices are really competitive as well, just to point that out. They also have a very good relationship, both in terms of distribution and everything else really that they need with key developers. We're not talking like tiny little developers here, which of course the Android has been, or shall I say the Ouya has been really focused on getting the small indies. They have relationships with really big developers, and of course one of the reasons for this is because of their distribution network. Now, there are rumours to show that it will also have, of course, Google Play integration, which isn't particularly astounding considering it is Android-based. There are a couple of concerns with this. The first, of course, is that Google Play itself is rife with emulators, and Google seem a bit reluctant. There seems to be quite a lot of emulators on there, and they don't really seem to be doing much, despite the fact that certain emulators are routinely targeted from big companies because of their somewhat dicey legal status. The other issue, of course, Amazon are going to be running into is that they are coming against two huge competitors. They've got the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 waiting in the wings to be unleashed into the world. And those two consoles, particularly the PS4, have gone under some really, really positive light right now from the press. And there's a good chance that it's going to be extremely difficult to get either system on launch because, well, the pre-orders are pretty much sold out at this point for both systems, particularly the PS4. There's rumoured to be quite a big shortage. The other problem with Android systems is if you were to take a look at the Ouya, it's a fraction of percentage of people who are actually buying games on the system. A lot of people are just pirating the titles, or they're just using the free-to-play models, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Free-to-play can work, but piracy obviously not so much. Therefore, they're going to have to really close off the system somehow or another to make it to the point where you can't just be like, okay, I'm going to download this and that's it. Because obviously, larger studios, if they are going to publish games on the system, they don't want it to the point where, well, you can just pirate the titles. Perhaps cloud-based distribution would work in that sense, and cloud-based gaming on certain titles could work. However, of course, there are innate problems with cloud, mostly primarily to do with latency. So, let's be honest, however, Amazon are not idiots. They are most likely already thought of this stuff. It's just a question of how successful it's going to be on the marketplace. Since we don't know anything on the specifications right now, I'll be very curious to see if it's merely an Ouya competitor, or if it's got something a lot more substantial behind it. It will be very, very curious indeed to see if they can actually wrangle a lot more power, because obviously they've got a lot more buying ability, but I suppose it also depends on what price range that they feel comfortable of releasing the system at. The other problem if they were to do this, if they were to close off the system really, really, really to quite a significant degree, it nukes homebrew. And it also nukes homebrew modifications, it nukes people tinkering with the console and trying their own games and various other bits and pieces, so they've got to be really careful in that respect as well. And even for those who do emulation, let's assume that you were intending to buy the system for emulation. You've then got the problems of, well, the Ouya is already available. And to be honest with you, you've also got PC, Linux, and whatever else. And you could build a really cheap Linux box for emulation if you so wish. So I suppose the real danger here is, obviously, there's a very good chance that the processor specifications, the GPU specifications, are not going to match, say, a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One, and most certainly not a PC. And so I think it's really going to come down to how well they can lock off the system, but at the same time maintain the key traits which make an Android system, well, profitable. With all of that said, however, it's certainly possible with Amazon's very good track record. I mean, it's not like they have a track record for failure. In addition to that, they have vast resources, a vast distribution network. They have their own studios, which have, well, let's face it, a lot of talent there. It's not like these people are, some tiny little indie developers they've worked with and then they've got them on their own studios. No, they are, people from Microsoft Game Studios, for example, which are, well, talented bunch of people. And also, of course, Amazon are very, very into the whole technology thing. So I don't really think that it's going to be a case of them going into things without significant research and R&D. I just am curious to see what the final specifications of the console are going to be and what they feel is going to be the best approach to tackle the market and how the best to stop the piracy and the other major issues that the Ouya are experiencing right now and how to separate themselves from the pack. Regardless, it will be very, very interesting over the next couple of years, I think, to see how the market really seems to deal with this stuff, because I remember, there's always been cases of saturation in the marketplace. There's always been like the Amstrad and the Spectrum and and the Commodore and goodness knows what else, which all had basically very similar versions of the same operating systems or slight changes on the specifications. And this was really the case a lot of the 80s and even early 90s. There were a lot of this. And then, of course, it started to die down a lot, and then you started to get like 1, 2, maybe 3 really dominant consoles in the gaming industry. And of course, then you continuously had the PC as well. But the same thing for Windows. Windows is somewhat starting to lose its grip in the market. It's certainly not completely removed its grip, but Linux now has started to become a lot more popular. This is one of the reasons, of course, that Valve themselves are pioneering this, because we know that Valve and Microsoft have a somewhat shaky relationship. Gabe Newell really doesn't like, for example, Windows 8. He calls it a catastrophe for gaming, although to be fair to Microsoft, they've actually done significant improvements, in my personal opinion anyway, to Windows 8 recently. It's certainly not quite how it used to be with the removal of the start button. They are slowly, in various releases and updates, starting to improve it, which in my personal opinion is a very good thing, of course. Anyway, so I guess all we can do is watch this space. Once again, none of this stuff has been confirmed. Amazon haven't released a press statement that has confirmed this stuff, but they certainly seem to be putting in the right pieces together and getting their game plan sorted out to do this. It's not really a surprise, because if they can crack the market, and that's the key word, can crack the market, well, it'll be very, very interesting market to behold, because of course there are those persistent rumors that even Apple are considering doing similar. And I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere in a secret laboratory in Apple, and of course I'm being a bit over dramatic here, but I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere in a secret laboratory, deep underground, that Apple themselves are toying with the idea of releasing a console as well. So I think that it's going to be a very curious couple of years. Anyway, regardless, hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video. I will hopefully see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.